not know exactly how, but nonetheless felt she should have. Maggie had said she was well known, but to Jean, Maggie's clothes gainsaid every word. Ragged denims, ragged shirt, and her long fringe of ragged hair proclaimed undomesticated passion, beside which all Jean's carefully anchored truths suffered in the shade. Every nuance framed Maggie's wild, magnificent figure and swinging, long-legged walk. But that wasn't what had drawn her in the first place. Well, maybe part of it. Most of it was that Maggie was unleashed, unfettered. Jean thought of herself as settled. The here and now was different from life at university. That was years, eons ago, halcyon days, when she occasionally put on jeans and a t-shirt without anything underneath and took walks in summer to feel the burn of masculine eyes. She called them ego walks. The walks were her one indulgence in an otherwise nose-to-the-grindstone college career. She never allowed to think to herself of why she walked. She never teased, encouraged, or even made eye contact. She was not that kind of girl, she told herself firmly. Not that kind of girl on the outside. Inside her heart was another matter. Inside she belly danced the seven veils, undulated in smoky bazaars before strong men who trembled as they watched her glide. She reached in through their eyes and drew lust from them in a heavy existential mist. Then Dan Barron came into her life. They met, courted, and married in church. Jean firmly set aside childish desires on an upper mental pantry shelf. Her ego walks were shelved as well, replaced by forays to the Gothic section of the bookstore on Elm Street. She gained weight for insulation against gazes of men and from herself. Jean remained, padded and safe, until one day in the Gothic section, reading the latest torrid pages from her favorite author, Anaïs Bijou, she lifted her attention from fantasy to gaze into Maggie's eyes. A flame erupted in her, as if she had been leaching explosive gas and Maggie was the flint that showered her with glowing sparks. She filled with warmth. It was disconcerting, disorienting. Then memory's compass needle swung round to north, and she knew her ego walk fire had fallen from the shelf to spotlight warmth flashed from a woman's eyes. She felt naked, aware she was now older, carried weight around her thighs, and bore wrinkles where once her skin had been softer than silken gossamer. Maggie's house was a revelation. The word that sprang to mind when Jean watched Maggie move through her own disheveled space was glide. Maggie's feet glided when she walked. Her hair glided through the air when she moved, and her gaze glided over Jean. Just once, Maggie's hands glided over Jean's body. Just the one time, just the one night. After Jean did not trust herself, Maggie's flame had loosed her from the earth and she floated, not knowing what she thought she had known and knowing more than she could handle. Jean returned to her house and her garden and her anchorage behind her chores. There in the quiet backwaters of comfortable life, she thought, and gradually wildness eased. When she thought she could handle it, she returned to Maggie's house, only to find the house full of empty. All that remained was a couch on the front lawn with a hardcover book resting on the soft cushion. Not just a couch. It was the couch where just the one time had happened. Jean looked at the book. It was the newest from her favorite, the author she had been reading when she first gazed into Maggie's eyes. She sat with knees and ankles pressed together at the proper careful slant and opened. On the flyleaf, Maggie's ragged scrawl glided across the page. I leave you with a bit of the best of me. Anaïs Bijou, a.k.a. Maggie. As Jean stared at the page, a man her own age and work clothes strode by. A newspaper clutched in his hand fluttered in the wind, and his vacant gaze scanned nothing but cold